What if I told you that somebody built a Horus Madolche deck? What is this? Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of the subscribe button for this double header. So our Taiyo Championship, that's a very considerate name that we're very used to seeing. Winning the event actually is Snake Eyes for our breakdown, which is actually pretty standard at this point. I think most of these events, pretty much Snake Eye does end up being the heavier challenger in the meta because it's got the consistency that you typically want to see. We also have Valiance. Now, let me tell you about these little pendulum movements. The deck is pretty strong at doing the things that it needs to do to put that craziness on your opponent. We also had a Vanquish challenger step into the arena for this event, and okay, that's not something I thought I'd see. And then we have this Madolche Horus pile. Now, that's two engines that I didn't think that I would see people trying to merge together. And when we get the chance to look at the deck here in a couple minutes, you're going to see what I mean by you're just like, what in the world are these engines really doing out here? Let's pass on over to those deck lists. Winning our event here is standard old Snake Eyes. And, you know, honestly, I'm not all that surprised. But there is no other engines. It's just the Diabell Star stuff to filter through the Snake Eyes package so that you can, you know, start doing these crazy lines of play. The subdiversion stuff to crystallize monsters is really good. You also side deck the one of that you can search and also crystallize, but you got to remember you have all the crazy fire support for this deck, which means that you get access to the Bohemian Princess, and we've seen how stupid that the princess actually is for fire decks, especially with the interactions with the Ambler Whale. Like, and also, I mean, all these little fire backdoors that you can float through here for this deck. It's kind of stupid, like how much advantage the little Snake Eye stuff actually gets, you know, when it starts snowballing. So yes, actual pure Snake Eyes taking down a pretty big dub here. Now, next up we have Valiance sporting off the super heavy samurai scales. Now, this is a build that the TCG really can't take advantage of, but the one thing that the Valiance does get to do in the OCG is because there's such a high aggressive search, they get access to the Gallant Granite, which can search for our good old friend Fossil Dyna Noposaurus, and then you deploy the Fossil Dyna after you go through most of your combo lines, and then your opponent just once again gets to do our favorite term on this channel, nope. Can't play the game. Nope. Especially, you know, if you've set up like a full field next to the Fossil Dyna. I think that's the scariest thing about all this is, you know, Valiance just combos through, sets up everything, stops, ends turn on the... your normal summon is the Dyna. If you're normal summoning any of the Valiance, then you're not setting up full combo. That's just how the deck is set up at this point. But intriguing, is it not? And then next up here, we are seeing the Vanquish Soul pile. Now, this Vanquish Soul pile is doing some things that I didn't really consider Vanquish Soul to be able to do. And they're playing the Wanting Moon to play synchros. I do see that we are playing the Power Tool Dragon down there for searchability. Okay, interesting. You can also make the Chaos Angel. We're playing many interesting extra deck targets as well. But once again, you don't really consider like the weird piles like this to be points of, you know, setup. It's just one of those things that you're just like, huh. You know, you set up, you have the trap interruptions. Obviously, like, they can't Fenrir into the Rise Heart for the extra value, but they do have extra darks that they can use to kind of set up and execute these crazier lines of play. So kudos to this pile actually getting the chance to work. And our last build out of this event is the Horus Madolche deck. What in the heck is going on here? Like, we are playing the Horus Field Spell with triple copies of the Sarcophagus. That's a given, right? You've always been wanting to use those cards, but you're loading down your graveyard so that you can set up these huge monsters, draw cards, and then you go down the Madolche subline to make sure that you generate advantage. And then, you know, the shuffle back off of the Chateau doesn't really matter all that much, but it's just interesting that this is the deck that kind of came out of the woodwork here and showed, hey, you know, we can challenge what people normally wouldn't consider big, heavy meta hitters for sure. Like, I thought Madolche was done, and then I saw this, and I was like, huh. You know, the gears are turning. I'm like, that's actually incredibly interesting. Now let's pass on over to our second tournament. This tournament paints a completely different picture for the heavy aggression. Our most represented deck is actually double Fire King. Now, if you've been paying any attention whatsoever to the OCG, Fire King has been a extremely heavy aggressive. Actually, it's probably by far one of the top meta decks for sure. And then, of course, we have a Rescue Ace deck also doing its thing. Wow, Year of the Fire out here, really grabbing the meta and shaking it up and showcasing, hey, you know, these are the decks. I mean, once again, Bohemian Princess doing its job, but that's fine. But the reason why I'm talking about this tournament is the deck that ended up winning it all was actually Blackwings, of all things. That's right. Blackwings had to play against double Fire Kings and Rescue Ace and managed to overcome all of this crazy meta aggression that you're about to see. Interesting, right? Let's pass on over so you can take a look at these decks. So winning our event here is none other than our Blackwing Turbo deck. And basically, I mean, it's all just synchro pile at this point, right? Like, you just combo up and do your thing. I see that we are playing, of course, the Full Armor Master. Only one copy of the Wanting Moon is a little bit interesting, but we're also playing a little bit of a Horus package. I don't agree with just triple him SETI. I figured maybe you'd get in like a Hoppy or something along the way as well, just to have the additional name as a point to kind of do your thing. But no, they didn't need it the way it looks. I also see that we do play 2 Small Worlds as well to be able to set up and do our thing. We have a very wide range of hand traps for post side decking as well. But the fact that this synchro pile was able to truly overcome some of the crazier builds. Also, I mean, big monsters go burr, right? Like, those heavy hitters are going to be some of the reason why you can see a deck like this kind of round out and do so well. Now, next up is our Fire King package here. Now, we are playing the one Snake Eyes monster next to the Ashen, because, you know, being able to bonfire into the Ashen, into the Papuli, and then do your thing. We do see the one Immaculation in here as well. I think one Immaculation is pretty standard for most of the Fire King builds at this point. And then, of course, your Sinful Spoils package is pretty much maximized to the appropriate number. We are playing double Super Poly in here as well, so you can kind of go ahead and start aiming to break those boards and, you know, get the initial setup. Extra deck, also incredibly standard, but post side decking, man, oh man, you want to talk about heavy aggression with those hand traps. Like, your opponent will not be having a fun time, especially with the Ghost Ogres, the Bells, the draw. Like, holy moly, man. Like, there is absolutely no fun allowed in here. I've generally enjoyed the evolution that Fire Kings have gone through for the meta, but like, this deck gets more and more aggressive, I feel like, every time I look at it. Next up here is our next Fire King deck. Now, this build is playing the Lone, the one skill drain, because remember, it's still limited to 1 in the OCG. They don't really get the chance to explore too much power with that, but I think the 1 is fine. I also see that this build is citing 1 copy of the Fire Barrier statue. The problem with the Fire Barrier statue right now is there's just so much like other fire decks in the room that you really cannot justify having it. It's just, that's how it is right now. Like, it's cool that a build is playing it, but it's just not really worth it at this point. If you do run into some other things, sure, but like, the fact this deck did have access to the barrier statue and Blackwings still ran through the rest of the meta, I find that kind of interesting, to really say the least, right? And then our last list here is Fire Kings. Excuse me, it's Rescue Ace. I see that we are splitting off 2 of the Snake Papilio, so something else to add to the hand for each special. It does make the link climbing easier to get into the Bohemian Princess kind of set up. And of course, you still have the set names. You do play the double SP Little Knight because the card is so stupid good. Post side decking, you have the Nibiru's, the Thrust. I see that we are playing the Ogre. Glad to see that Ogre is seeing some love again. So, not really much else to talk about here, but those are some real abnormalities if I've ever seen them in the meta, right? So please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I will see your beautiful faces back here in a day, guys. Peace out. Patrons! Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.